All right, so I'm going to say goodbye to you guys over here. Hey, all right. Second stream live, yes. Okay, boom. Give me 1 second. I have way too many things going on right now. Okay. So I'm going to put this landscape. It won't let me turn my phone. Okay, well, bring a friend. Nope, that's not what I wanted. All right, so it looks like, Babs, I should have sent you an invite. Let's see. Invite friends. All right, it says it sent you an invite. Go away. Bring Babs. Yes. Did it work? It says adding. Here we go. Okay. Connecting. We're getting
Hello.
it. Yay!
Have you got your phone vertically or horizontally?
When I turned it horizontally, it told me to turn it back. It wouldn't let me. Let's see if it'll let me do it now. No. It says rotate your phone.
It's keeping us teeny tiny.
Oh, God, that's annoying.
Oh, dearie me.
Oh, Facebook. Okay, I'm posting this one in the event just so that everybody can find us again.
Let's get that light turned off so that you could actually see me. Although that's not necessarily what everyone wants.
Of course, we want to see you. What a silly question. Well, hello and welcome. I'm glad we found you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about this. This is a topic that I find really interesting because I've had not only in this business, in this career per se, but I've also been teaching dance for about 10 years now. And I've had, mentor-like figures in that realm as well. So the concept is really interesting to me, and I love the idea of having someone in that role in your life, and I do think it's really important. So I'm really glad that we're talking about this. And everyone who is watching, please send in your comments and questions for Babs. This is a live expert Q&A, and I call it that for a reason. So send in those cues if you have them for her, and we can actually ask them so that she can help you guys out if you have any questions. Let me pull this up on my phone so I can, or my computer rather. And then let's get started with Babs. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, kind of how you got started as a yarnpreneur, and kind of what brought you to this spot of your business, this area of your business? That was a really bad word, but you know what I mean.
That's fine. That's fine. I will say that I have, as always, a notepad and pen. And so if I suddenly duck down, then I'm taking notes to make sure I don't forget something. It is
Love
just
it.
what I do all the time. So I'm just letting people know I am surrounded by notebooks at every moment of any given day.
Oh my God, me too. Look at this one. It's got llamas.
That's cool. Got one with crystals.
Ooh, I like it.
It's gorgeous.
Very nice.
I am a stationery nerd, so that's the first thing I'll share with you. I am a stationery nerd. I love to be organized, and I have a background in IT, and I've been working with yarn since I was 5, maybe. The first thing I made when I was 5 at school, and I've continued making things since then. I think I even shared a video back on my YouTube channel about the very first thing that I sewed on a sewing machine, which I made when I was 7, and it's got the most gorgeous top stitching, which I would struggle to do now, so I must have seriously put some effort and thought into that back when I was that age. I have always had a love of making things out of yarn. Now, I was born in the 70s, which was it feels like a millennia ago. But that it really wasn't cool to be doing cross stitch and knitting and crochet and sewing in the 80s or the 70s or the 90s, quite frankly. So even though I've been looking for ways that I could use my love for yarn and fabric for decades, quite frankly, I haven't been able to do that until now, until the technology was there for me to be able to spread my love of yarn and fabric with the world. And that might sound a little bit egocentric, but it is a fact that the majority of my clients, my customers, the people who sign up for my courses, classes, and buy patterns from me are all over the globe: Australia, America, places I've never been, South Africa. It is an incredibly varied audience that I actually have access to now, and who pay attention to me and who are interested in what I have to say. No longer do I just have to bore my husband by, I'm doing cross stitch again tonight. I can now find the people who have similar interests across the globe, which is wonderful. I used to work in IT because I had to do something to earn a living when yarn wasn't an option for me. So I started out working on an oil refinery on a help desk. I then moved into the financial sector and became project manager for the euro conversion back before the turn of the century, and then the Y2K conversion. I worked on both of those projects for the Bank of England.
Wow.
And whilst that was a lifetime ago, they were still really big projects, and they took a huge amount of organisation and project management. So I then moved on to becoming an IT consultant and a business development manager, and I worked as a customer magician, I was called. But basically it meant I would be sent out to all the worst customer issues and magically make them go away. So that
I
was
like
great
that.
fun.
I think I'm going to start calling Amanda a customer magician.
Oh, well, you see, this is the thing. We all know them when we have them.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
So the last multinational company that I worked for before I started working for myself, the first week into the job, I was sent to BA to try and resolve an issue that this company had with BA, and that was glorious fun. But I got it resolved, I got it all sorted, and everything then moved on. One of the key reasons that I was successful at that came from my desire to help people. I was rubbish at sales because the sales teams back then were very old-fashioned, and they wanted to trick you into buying something and to try and increase the commission as much as possible, and just try and put you in a position that you'd look like an idiot if you didn't buy their product. And I really hate that. I loathe that. And so that really coloured my thinking around sales for the longest of times. But what I did do very well, what I excelled at, was finding ways to help people as simply as possible. So
You said my favorite word in the world. Simple.
I've spent my entire career simplifying things. I've been translating technology through the help desk. When I was an IT consultant, I would translate what the customer wanted to our IT guys, and then from our IT guys back to the customers. And so being able to do that translation process has really stood me in good stead to helping businesses grow and develop and change the way that they look at particular issues. I like to say issues rather than problems. I know that everyone has problems, but if that's the way that your mindset is, you're never going to find a solution. Yeah. If you look at it as an issue, then there is a solution out there. You just haven't found it yet. It's just a matter of exploring a bit more.
I love that.
I am an explorer. I experiment. I play. I try new things. I try completely random things, and I'm very open about what I try and how it's worked or how it hasn't worked for me, because I don't want those that follow to make exactly the same mistakes I have. I would rather they made their own new mistakes, and then they could get a whole new bunch of learning out of that.
Yeah.
rather than me sit back and watch them do exactly what I've just done, and it has exactly the same result. And I go, yeah, I knew that. I knew that was going to happen. And that reaction is one that drives me to frustration. That is so selfish. And I think it costs you nothing. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to say to someone you're a complete moron for trying to do this. But you can find a way to talk to people that would just gently explain that there are other ways, and you probably don't want to do it. If someone's truly bullheaded and that they're insisting that they're going to do this and make their own mistakes, well, that's fine. But each person has their own way of learning and experiencing business. But definitely, I would always take the advice of someone who's made the mistake that I'm about to make, rather than let me go through that pain first.
Oh, yeah.
So I left work for children and family, and then I got really bored because I have the attention span of a gnat, and you can only do so much knitting and so much cross stitch whilst you've got a babe in arms. It just doesn't work. Sharp pointy things and small grabby babies is not a good combination.
Yeah.
So when my son went to preschool for the first time, I think within about a month or so I started my own business. And that was a web design business. It's like, yes, that's it. He's out the door. I'm starting.
Not wasting any time.
I'm not going to mess about. I'm just going to start doing something else. And that was a web design business, and that taught me all sorts of different things about business. And I earned a very good living at it, but I hated my clients. They just were not my people. I didn't enjoy working with them. I had people actually laugh in my face when I tried to talk to them about things. It was a really unpleasant and toxic community. And so I was looking for something that would involve colour and texture and all those things that I love. I then moved on and became a face painter because that's the obvious next progression.
Clearly.
Obviously, I mean, you go from IT consultant to web developer to face painter. It's clearly the career path. And,
absolutely.
And that really, it ticked so many boxes. It was brilliant for the kids. They loved it. They got to go to all sorts of parties and events. And I got to interact with people and children on a one-to-one basis in a way that I'd never done before. I had a whole different raft of business experiences in terms of booking clients in a very different way, in a one-to-one direction rather than corporate. And of course I got to play with colour and glitter and shiny gemstones and jewels, and it was fabulous. It was fabulous. I adore colour. And then I moved into experimenting with YouTube. And this was my dad's idea. He said that, you know, you do so much sewing, you know all these tips and tricks, and you do so much of this stuff. Why don't you ever show someone how to do that? And the cost of booking up a room for a one-to-one course, or even a group of course face-to-face, was just extortionate for us. You're looking at about £45 for a room for an hour. And how much can I actually charge people to turn up, and how many people can I squeeze into that room and it still be worthwhile? And if one person cancels, I have to cancel the whole thing. So that was just ridiculous, so ridiculous. So I did experiment with YouTube, and I now have over 20,000 subscribers to my channel, which is mind-blowing considering it was just an experiment. And I've had some amazing feedback, some wonderful opportunities as a result of that. And I've actually earned some very sensible money out of it through sponsorships, through paid work, or by actually creating tutorial videos for other clients, you know, their own branded. Terry, thank you.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Terry has. She has indeed been following me on YouTube for a very long time. Terry is a sweetheart.
That's awesome.
So as I say, I'm an explorer, and I experiment and I play around, and I try out new things all the time. And I decided last year that I was going to move into teaching those skills that business owners really need to keep their business afloat. Not just that they need to have some confidence to write some patterns, which obviously you do, and that is a massive step forward. So once you've got that confidence, you then need to know, what do I do next? And how do I promote things? How do I sell things? How do I interact with people? Can I?
There's a million questions that come up.
There are so many questions, and so that was why I created Yarn Academy. I do design, but that's under the Fiery Phoenix brand. So I do design, and I'm running a CAL, which is a year-long CAL, which is going really well, under the Fiery Phoenix brand. But under the Yarn Academy brand, which launched Black Friday last year, that is where you have the education, the training, the resources, the downloads, for all those business skills that you need to support a yarnpreneur business. And I have most definitely niched it down. Everything is designed around yarn.
Yeah.
So that is knitting, dyeing, spinning, crochet. I would absolutely love to have some spinners come along and create courses. We've got some dyers who are interested in doing that. I also provide the opportunity for people to run their own courses under the umbrella of Yarn Academy, because I'm looking at it as a true academy, like a university, where they have multiple lecturers who do their own thing. Because I don't know how to do everything. I'm not saying I know how to do everything, but I would love to be able to support people to create their own online training, which then they can sell to their own clients and customers. And then I'm always welcoming people to come along and do guest blogs and share their experience. Or if they want to write a little mini course for members, then they're more than welcome to do that. We've had illusion knitting, we've had mosaic knitting. There's all sorts of different types of skill-based courses that have been run. We haven't had any crochet yet. I've got somebody who says they're going to write crochet, but nobody has yet.
Crochet is a whole different animal. It really is.
Absolutely.
But I love hearing your story, because I knew some of those things, but not all of those things. And I always love hearing the evolution from when someone goes from a hobbyist, a crafter, someone who just really enjoys the craft, to taking it to, I want it to be my career, I want it to sustain some income for me, I want it to be more than a passion. And I love hearing all the different stories kind of centered around that transition from I was in a job I didn't like, and I slowly kind of figured out, okay, maybe this will work, and then you kind of narrow it down until you get to like what you were really meant to do. And I love hearing those stories. So thank you so much for sharing that. So today we're talking about the importance of having a mentor. And I have a few questions kind of written up so that we can run through some of the different aspects of having a mentor. But if you guys watching have any questions, I see Kelly put one in. I'm going to hold the questions until the end. Send them all through so that you don't forget them, because I'm that kind of person. I totally get it. Type it in, send it through. I'll scroll back through everything later to make sure that we get everyone's questions. And then for now, so I'm curious, just to kind of kick this off, what has your experience been with a mentor or mentors? Like what has your experience been? What have you, when have you had a mentor, and what was that like?
Okay. I was asked to be a mentor. In fact, I've been asked to be a mentor at least 3 times by 3 different companies before I realized that was a skill that I actually had. So I actually did mentoring before I ever asked for a mentor. I did have a mentor in my last company. He was the guy that I argued with at my interview for that particular job. I'm such an easygoing person. I argue in the interview. I didn't want this role. This was the customer magician role. I didn't want this role. It was going to take far too long for me to drive to and from work. I was fed up with the whole thing. he was asking me to define the difference between hardware and software. Hardware is a physical piece of kit. Software is a piece of software. You know, stuff that you've typed in on a computer. It's not tangible. The two things are very clearly defined. And he started arguing with me about it. And
Oh
in
gosh.
the end, I just said, look, we'll just have to agree that we have differences of opinion on what hardware and software is, and just leave it at that, because that is my definition of hardware, and nothing you say is actually going to change my belief that that is the definition of hardware. I'm quite happy to accept that you will think that it's something different, but no, I'm not. And then they asked me, what is it that you want to do? Not it was it's, what is something that you're really proud of that you've done recently? You know, those sort of throw you off guard questions that you get in interviews. And so I said, I made a Victoria sponge for the first time this morning, and it came out perfectly, and I'm really excited about that. It had nothing to do with the job. I didn't care that it had nothing to do with the job, but it did truly excite me that this was the first time I'd made it, and it worked really well. And then I get the phone call that they're offering me the job, and I don't want it, so I turn it down. And then I get another phone call that they're offering me the job for significantly more money, and I turn it down. And then I get the offer for a job for an insane amount of money, plus a free car, plus something else. And it was like, all right then.
Oh gosh.
But all right. And then when I get there, the guy that I'd argued with said that he loved the fact that I'd stood my ground and I hadn't cat out, and that I was willing to stand up for what I believed in, and that's what they needed, because their company was beyond misogynistic, and if I was going to be there, I'd need to have a spine and be able to stand up for myself. So that's how I got the job, by arguing and standing up for myself. So that kind of gives people an idea of what I'm like. I've frequently been told that Fiery Phoenix is a wonderful description for me as well as the company. But this guy Paul, he was my mentor, and he was brilliant. He's the one that explained the power of language to me. And if you have, I mean, I'm English, so we have a very self-depreciating use of language. We apologize for everything. We get out of everybody's way. We say I'm sorry all the time without even realizing it. And we also use language like but, and you've probably noticed that I use language like and significantly more. So it's, I wanted to do this, but I don't think it's a good idea, or I think you should do that, but I know that. And as soon as you say but, as soon as that language creeps in, that negative self-doubt, you lose the power of your argument. And it was Paul that taught me that, and that is actually an incredibly powerful thing. I mean, he taught me loads of stuff, but that was just the first thing that he taught me, and it really was incredibly powerful. That if you doubt yourself and you go to talk to someone, and if you want to sell them a design, or if you want to work with them, and you're constantly saying, oh, I'm sorry, or I'm not really sure, and then you're sort of shrinking back in your chair and your whole body language changes. Yeah. And if you doubt yourself, then the person that you're trying to pitch to is probably going to follow your lead, because if you don't believe in yourself, why should they? And it's a very subtle change, but it can make a massive impact on how you are perceived by the rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think I've figured a lot of that out for myself. But it's nice to have, I think there's a big difference in having someone who cares about you and wants to see you grow and learn, and wants to empower you to, you know, utilize things that will help your business grow, or you grow as a person, or I think those things are really important. So what do you think having a mentor can do specifically for yarnpreneurs? So if we're talking about the people in our group, we have designers, we have knit and crochet designers, we have a handful of yarn dyers, we have some people that either own local yarn shops or are aspiring to open local yarn shops. What do you think that mentor dynamic can help a yarnpreneur with?
Okay, there's instantly two things that come to mind. I'm going to definitely think of a third thing, because they should always come in at odd numbers.
I love that.
Give me a moment of a third thing, but definitely the first is that you've got somebody who I've got three things. That's fine. You've got somebody who you actually connect with, somebody who thinks in a similar way to you. If you have somebody in mind for a mentor who does not share the same wavelength as you, somebody who doesn't understand the kind of jokes that you tell when you're nervous, and somebody who doesn't understand how you communicate, then you're going to spend the majority of your time not understanding each other and
Yeah.
having someone trying to correct something that is part of your personality. So that is going to be a massive waste of everybody's time. So you really need to find a mentor that gets you and that you get just as much, because it has to be a two-way process.
Yeah.
So that is really, really important. The second thing is that you need to understand that this person will not be your best friend. They're not going to sit there and tell you that you're so clever and that you're the best designer in the world, or that your way with color is stunning and glorious. If they do, then it should be because it truly is on that one occasion. It's not that they're blowing smoke at you every single time they communicate with you. In fact, if they are, then they're doing you a disservice, because the whole point of having a mentor is that they are pointing out areas that you can improve. And if they tell you you're perfect, then there's no improvement there, and you're just paying them money for nothing or following them for no reason. So for you to be able to get the most out of that relationship, they need to be able to tell you in a kind way, but in a firm way, that there are things that you need to change, so that you can tweak and improve and increase your bottom line. Because at the end of the day, that is what you want. If you've got a mentor, then you need to make sure that is the goal. They understand where you want to go, and they're going to point out things that you need to course correct or to change slightly. And it could be that it's a very minor change, but it has a massive impact over time.
Love that.
So definitely it's being open for those course corrections, and understanding that a mentor isn't there to make you feel good. They are there to pick you up if you've fallen down and you're feeling depressed and you just can't get your head in the right space. But they're not there just to tell you that you're great all the time. That's what your mum's for, or your nan. That's not your mentor. And the third thing is that you will sometimes either need to change the mentor that you're with, because people specialize in certain things. So there's a mentor that I work with, Mel Farr, and she deals specifically with sales. And I had a huge mental issue because of those hideous people in the 90s, those horrible, horrible salesmen, who just twisted my view of sales and how it worked. And so I needed to get past that mindset. And so I needed not somebody who specialized in yarn, not somebody who understood the internet. I needed somebody who understood how to sell in the way I wanted to sell and the way I feel comfortable, which is by giving way more than you ask for. And that suits me perfectly. It really fits nicely. And that has helped me get my head around sales so much. And also be aware that you might outgrow your mentor. If they're really doing their job well, then you are going to upscale, and you may well outgrow them and need to find somebody doing something else. So if they've helped you sort out your mindset and helped you get your business, all your business ducks in a row, so that you can upscale and start to increase the amount of product that you're producing, or you've managed to bring a team on board, and you can sell so much more because you've got someone who's doing your test knits, someone who's doing your test dye, someone who's doing all your tech editing, and you've got this team behind you, then it's perfectly acceptable for you to find a new mentor, and you don't have to be tied to somebody for the rest of your life. And you shouldn't feel guilty for moving as you need to move, because again, they're not your best friend, they're not your nan, they're not your mum, they are a mentor. And if they're any good at their job, they'll realize that this is coming up, and they'll spot it. And if they're really good at their job, they will have somebody to recommend you go and see or think about approaching, because this is the person that can help you with the next part of your journey. So it's very important that you find somebody that you connect with, somebody who isn't just going to give you compliments the entire time, and somebody who is going to be savvy enough to realize that you need help that they can't give you, and to give you a recommendation of where to go. And if you can find someone that can do all three of those things, then hold on to them for as long as you need them, because trying to break in a new mentor-mentee relationship can be quite time consuming. But if you found someone who ticks all those boxes, then stay with them until you don't need to be with them anymore. Because it's going to take a lot more time to try and find somebody new for you to be able to work with. So, you know, if you needed somebody who knew the crochet industry inside and out, I'm sure you've got someone we could recommend. If you need somebody who knows sales inside and out, I could recommend Mel. And, you know, there are loads of other, for copywriting, and her name escapes me, and I've followed her for years, and that's terrible, but that's purely because I'm on camera right now. As soon as I remember her name, then I will.
Happens all the time. It's exactly what happens.
I will let you know. Oh dear.
Well, I love that you've broken it down into three such simple, but I think without being told, I know that there certainly have been times where I've either, you know, reached out to someone to help with something in particular, and you get that, like, we don't jive feeling, you know, like we're not on the same wavelength. Or there are certainly times where you like try and make that type of relationship work, you know, maybe because of the situation you're in or whatever, that was the only person you could find, or that was the first person you found or whatever. But you wind up struggling through that patch of like, we don't really work on the same wavelength. And I think it's really nice to hear that it's not something you should struggle through. Like, that is, if you don't jive, you don't jive. Like, you got to find someone that fits with you, because I do think it can be very detrimental both to your emotional health if you're always trying to like understand someone or have them understand you, and you're just not able to, but also, you know, to your business and what you're trying to accomplish. So I love that you've spelled out those three very simple, but I'm sure very effective things to pay attention to. So you mentioned your mentor for sales. Now, I think people might be curious about this. What does your, for lack of a better word, schedule look like with your mentor? Like, how often do you meet? When do you guys talk? How long do you talk? Like, what do all the ins and outs of that kind of relationship actually look like?
When you're working with a mentor one-to-one, it's different to working in a group program. Where it's one-to-one, the amount of information that you get, or the risk is that the amount of information you can get in, say, an hour's session is overwhelming. So you need to have enough time to be able to process the information that you've been given, and then to take action on that whilst also still doing your day job. And some people have a day job plus their Yarnpreneur experience.
Right.
Other people just work full time on their yarn business. And so you need to make sure that the person that is mentoring has allowed the mentoree enough time to actually implement anything. Otherwise, if it's a 1 hour session once a week, by the time you get around to week 2, you've not had any time to do anything with the huge amount of information that you'll have gone through in that first session. So generally, when it is a direct one-to-one relationship, the amount of time between sessions is increased depending upon how long it takes you to actually implement some of that. Now, that doesn't mean that you never speak to them again in the interim, because you have access to email, to all sorts of contact and support, and generally you would have a meeting once every 2 to 3 weeks, and then you have the ability to drop messages back and forth either through Facebook groups, or if it's a one-to-one relationship, then there would be a phone number or a text, or some direct line of communication rather than going through a third party. So you can just bounce ideas off of each other. Now, it may be that the mentor has decided that they will only answer questions within business hours or their business hours. So if you're in a different time zone, you just need to take that into account. But generally, if there is an emergency, they'll be on the end of a phone. But a mentor relationship shouldn't actually result in too many emergencies. They're not your tech support.
Right.
They're not your customer service team. They're not your VA. They are your mentor. So you shouldn't really be picking up the phone to them and having a panic attack down the line about something that you've been discussing. It should be that everything is moving along in the background so that you are coming together to talk about what has worked or hasn't worked based on the actions that you'd agreed together.
So
So
would you agree that the mentor would be there more for big picture things? Not that they wouldn't necessarily care about what's going on in the day to day and help you make the day to day work better, but that the primary focus would be let's work on the big stuff that will really move the needle and get you going where you want to go.
it depends on what it is that you want to do. As the client, you guide where the mentor will spend their time. Again, if they are too focused on, well, I've got this program and you have to go through my program in step 1, 2, and 3, then that's not really going to be very beneficial to you. It'll be very easy for them, and it will make things very simple for them because they just follow the same process each time with everybody that comes in.
Yeah.
However, not every client will be the same. What I want from a mentor will not be what you want from a mentor. People will want different goals. They'll have different ideas in mind, and it could be that I'm just focusing on my next launch and I need help with my next launch, and what is the launch process that I should follow. And that is an entirely different set of responses from a mentor to, I don't know how to publish a pattern. Being able to publish a pattern is not technically the same thing as creating a launch for a pattern. Publishing a pattern means all sorts of different things, and you need to have a mentor that can work out the difference between the two things, because they sound very similar. So it could be very easy for somebody to go, yep, this is my launch process, off you go, but that isn't actually what you need help with. You need help with photography and design and layout and how to get the thing printed. Are you even bothering to print it? All those kind of, and they're entirely different questions to launching. So it is always a process that is very much driven by finding out what the mentee needs to take them to the next level. And that could be quite a long conversation in the first time that you set up. So it's like, what's the history? What have you done so far? And you have to be honest. You have to be brave enough to be honest with your mentor. So if they need to know sales numbers, you need to be able to give them sales numbers. So you do need to do some research on your own business, either for the first or second time that you meet with them, so that they can really help you. If you don't have the information, or if you lie blatantly because you're embarrassed, then you're not going to get any help. Because if you're saying that you're massively successful in sales and you've done loads of sales and it's wonderful, then they're not going to help you with that. They're going to look at something else. But if what you really need is help with sales, then they'll focus in on that and really help you. So honesty is definitely key, absolutely key. And feeling embarrassed, you shouldn't feel embarrassed. Your mentor should be the one person in the world that you shouldn't feel embarrassed about sharing the real nitty gritty and your honest reality. Because they're there to help you, and that is their whole reason for being, is to help you improve. But they can't do that unless they know what's going on. And I think quite a lot of people don't actually have a realistic understanding of how successful or otherwise their business is. I think people tend to be wildly in the opposite direction. So they either think they're doing brilliantly when in reality they're not, which is always kind of tricky to deal with. Or they think that they haven't even scratched the surface. They haven't, their first pattern only sold 100 copies, and that's rubbish. And it's like, can you hear what you're saying? and so it's just trying to find some reality before you can then move forward to drive the growth that they actually need.
I love that. I would agree. And it's one of the reasons why during the kind of indoctrination process into the academy, the onboarding sequence, we have you define success. What is your success? Is it sales, or is it, hey, I made enough money, now I can take Fridays off for the rest of my life? Like what does that really mean to you? Because again, if you're not honest with yourself about what that is, it's really hard to say, yeah, I'm successful, or no, I'm not successful. Because there are plenty of people who don't consider themselves successful when many other people would, based on their metrics or their numbers. So I do think that's really important. And I love that you brought up being honest with your mentor, and because I know that is hard. It's hard to be brave enough to open up about that kind of stuff. And especially if you feel on any level embarrassed or, kind of shy about what you've accomplished so far. You're not going to get the same help. You're not going to get the right help. You're not going to get the things that you really truly need if you're not 100% clear and honest about where you are. I think that probably makes the mentor's job a lot harder if they don't have the full picture.
Yeah. And every mentor always wants to be able to say, my client has 10 times their income, or my client has had X number of inches in the papers. The mentor always wants to be able to show off about the success of their clients. So they really do want you to succeed, because by you succeeding is how they will get additional customers and clients going forward. So it's not pretend. They really do want you to succeed for very selfish reasons for them. Plus, it might make them feel good, which is always a buzz. But, that is a relationship that you really should take advantage of, if at all possible.
I love it. Okay, so I feel like we've covered a lot of awesome stuff. Before I ask my last question, I'm going to scroll back through here. I think there was a question or two. Let me just want to make sure I get everyone's. I want to say hello to Timu and Amanda P and Amanda W, Novella, Ruth, Kelly. Oh, she's got the llama notebook too. Yes, love it. Karen. Let's see. Oh, Terry said hi. Tammy said hi. Karen said hi. Oh, she was laughing. Love it. Let's see. Okay, so Kelly had a question. I love to do many things: upcycled sewing, knitting, pattern making, and on and on. I love many colors and have an eclectic taste. In other words, I am having an identity crisis. I feel like others who are successful in the creative business world have a focus, a look, a brand, their colors, their look, etc. What advice do you have for those of us who seem to chase squirrels on a regular basis?
Okay, I too suffer from shiny object syndrome. As you may have noticed, I adore color and I adore texture. And for those who've been following my YouTube channel for years know that I do sewing, I do hand sewing, I do crochet, I knit, and all of that is over on my Fiery Phoenix channel. And that is where I indulge all of those passions. On the Yarn Academy channel is where it is specifically for knitting and crochet and business related tutorials and video content. So that is how I split the two out, because that's how my business is split. But I still do work with sewing companies. I still do work with quilting companies. I still design for knit and I still design for crochet. Because I enjoy all of them. And if you can separate and schedule your time so that you can spend the necessary time on each project, then you can go squirrel crazy, and that's fine. You can also make your love of color and texture your brand. And it could be that you will create a selection of projects with a selection of a color scheme, and you will do that color scheme in knit, in crochet, in the yarn that you've created, that dyed, and then you'll also do a quilt and a sewing project to match. I have created many upcycled knit items, and I am really keen to finish off my dream goal is to actually create one of these pixie coats that I've upcycled by knitting each of the patches or crocheting each of the patches, or maybe a combination of the two, so that I've literally created it from scratch rather than upcycling it. Pixie coats are quite cool. I've just got one here because, you know, I'm sad. Bear with me a minute and I'll see if we can see it. I'll pop the light on. Let's see. Can you see that?
Oh, wow.
So
That's beautiful.
this is a pixie coat that I made. It has an enormous great hood, and it's all upcycled from a variety of different jumpers and sweaters and things. So I have this goal to create a pattern that is making one of those by actually knitting or crocheting the swatches individually and then joining them all together to make the coat. Now you could do a project like that, and if you are content working on projects like that, then you can upcycle and you can sew and you can knit and crochet all in one project. So it's a matter of thinking about what skills and what time and how you could combine those to come up with something that works for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. See, I've had people ask questions, similar questions in the past. Usually specifically about, you know, I have like two very distinct areas of my business that have kind of evolved over time. And then, you know, do I split them out? Do I keep them together? Like, what does branding look like? And I feel like the answer to that is always very specific to the yarnpreneur. It's also very specific to the amount of things they have going on. Like, you know, are you just tech editing and crocheting? Like, those are two very easy things to split apart, right? But you don't necessarily have to, especially if you're making a lot of different things. You know, there are certainly ways to bring them together under a cohesive brand that would make sense. And again, it all kind of depends on what are you doing, and, you know, what does that look like? How much time do you have? How do you love one of those things more than the other? You know, like, those are all kind of questions that you can ask yourself. Ruth says, so where do I find these people to give me compliments all the time? That sounds lovely. Kelly says, thank you so much. What a fabulous idea, selection, and color themes. Love your coat. Way too fun. Thank you for the inspiration and the generous answer. Well, thank you so much for asking, Kelly. And I'm glad that Babs helped. So I'm going to ask my last question to wrap all this up. So how would you recommend that our audience goes about finding a mentor? If you had to give them one tip, one first step to take today, if they're ready to go down this road, what would you tell them?
I would say that you need to stalk, in a non-scary way, somebody that you think that you might be able to develop a mentor relationship with. I've remembered the other person, Marie Forleo.
I love her.
She's awesome. She's absolutely awesome. I followed her for years. And so I suggest that if there is somebody that you think you may have a connection with, or you might be on the same wavelength as, and you think that they would have some words of wisdom to give you, then follow them on Facebook, on Instagram, on Pinterest, wherever you can follow them. They may have a YouTube channel. People have so many different ways of communicating with their audience these days. It makes it very easy for you to stalk quietly. You could ask questions. You could join in with any challenges that they're running to see if the way that they run their challenges is something that's compatible with you. And then you can approach them, because believe me, any mentor would be really happy to have somebody say, I would love you to mentor me. Or how do we go about doing that? Do we need to have a discovery call, or an inspiration call, or a call to define your spark, or whatever it is that people call them? And then it's in that phone call that you can decide whether you actually think you do get along with this person, or whether you don't. But I think definitely the first step is to positively stalk them and to see what they're about, and if that actually works for you. Because then that's not embarrassing. You haven't exposed yourself. You haven't opened yourself up to rejection, or for them to reject you, or you to reject them. So all of that embarrassment and awkwardness can be avoided, and you can just see if you like them or not, and then decide to move on from there. But don't be afraid to communicate with somebody. And if it doesn't work, or you don't feel comfortable talking to them, then that's probably a good indicator that they're not the right mentor for you. If you can't bring yourself to talk to them, well, that's a huge part of being in a mentor relationship, is being able to talk to your mentor. So if you are too full of nerves to get the first word out, then that's not going to be a relationship that will work. You need to find some other way of building that confidence before you talk to them. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of your time and your hard-earned pennies.
Awesome. I think that is fantastic advice. And the phrase positively stalk is now going to be in my vocabulary for forever. Thank you so much, Babs, for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. I had tons of fun, and I hope you did too.
It's been, thank you for letting me prattle on at you.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, with that accent, I will let you talk all day long. Um, yeah, I told Babs that I liked her accent, and then things got awkward. I'm just kidding. Yes, but I really appreciate you being here. I hope everyone had a great time. I hope you all got your questions answered. Babs hangs out with us in the group all the time, so feel free to tag her in posts. This is great. You're going to get like tagged all over the place now. Feel free to annoy her, positively stalk her, go for all those things. Yeah, Amanda says she has lots of good stuff. Amanda's going to be making some quote graphics from this call because there were lots of good nuggets in here. So, all right, I'm going to sign off. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Terry. Thanks, everyone, for being here. And I will see you all soon. We've got an exciting expert Q&A, another one planned for 2 weeks from now. So stay tuned for that event coming out. And I'll talk to you guys all soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.